And it's lights out and away we go.
What's up, guys and girls, and welcome back to the 2024 season of the GT UK F1 podcast. I am joined by my co-host, David.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back. We've all waited a long time for this season, and now we're back in it.
Yeah, we're back in at Bahrain, and gonna be honest, guys, I didn't catch any of the practice sessions. I only saw qualifying and the race, so this podcast may be a little bit more condensed.
Who said woohoo?
But just before we obviously start and get into things, don't forget you can come and join us in the F1 Fantasy League. We have obviously the private league of us, obviously the podcast presenters versus you, the listeners. You'll find that right at the top on the Spotify description. Obviously, it is it'll be on the Amazon description as well, and wherever you get podcasts, it'll be right at the top, and it'll say the F1 podcast, like Fantasy League, where you guys can actually come and see if you can actually beat us this season. It's something new that we've done, but I hope that you will come and join us.
Not building on last year's, because last year obviously we just had the one between all of us. So I thought we'd throw it open to you lovely people who decide to join us every race weekend. Yeah.
And to be honest, it's kind of thrown us. It's thrown me a little bit because obviously I was, I'm so used to a Sunday race.
It threw you. Think of us who work Saturdays.
Well, yeah, that's true.
I actually didn't watch the race till about 9 o'clock Saturday night because I was busy. I had work and then I was helping a friend move house. Of all the weekends he picked.
Yeah.
But so obviously borrowed a works van, so it was like I had to do a total social media radio blackout.
Which
I literally got into my car outside work and he just came on the news and he went, "I'm in Formula One," and I punched the off button that hard I had to go and retrieve it from inside the dashboard. It's like, no.
And yeah.
All I could think to myself was,
No, Mikey, no, Mikey, that was so not right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, resist.
And it was a bit mad because obviously it's going to happen again next weekend, or should be this weekend coming up actually.
From what I understand, it's actually this weekend was the main one was going to be a problem. Because it's to do, problem was the wrong word, I apologise. It was this one that it was going to clash. But apparently in the rules there has to be at least 7 days between races.
Yeah, so that's why they did this race on Saturday and Jeddah.
At least Jeddah's, for us UK guys, is a bit later in the evening.
5 o'clock race time.
Yeah, makes it a little bit easier. I'm usually done by then. Although this weekend I'm actually away. I'll be at a hotel in Warrington, probably watching it on my phone. The way it goes.
So obviously, didn't see the practice, so know nothing about it. Don't know if there was any troubles or.
I caught a little bit of Q2. From what I saw, not really.
I mean, practice.
I don't know. Yeah, practice too. I mean, I don't know whether I want to call it now. There was the typical, you entered every practice section where was it Merck topped one, Ricardo topped one. And everyone's going, oh look, everyone's caught Red Bull, and I'm there thinking, no they haven't.
Yeah.
Red Bull are just sat there with the engine on 75% going, alright lads, we'll turn it up on Friday.
Yeah.
And blow them all out of the water.
Danny Ricciardo topped FP1. Hamilton.
Was it Hamilton and 2?
2, and then Sainz for 3.
Yeah, and everyone, of course, social media explodes with, the Red Bull this year is no good, obviously it can't keep up. I'm like, you short-sighted fools.
Yeah.
We've been here before.
That's the hardest thing. It's like, you get all the bashers, and it's like, no guys, you The thing is, and this is the worst thing, F1, the commentators themselves, are an absolute, like, pain in the ass, because they always say FP2 is representative. Well, I'm sorry, it's not.
Well, there's no, because you never know what systems rotors, and what's the term I'm looking for, what programs
Yeah,
the teams are running.
exactly.
Because some are doing heavy fuel load simulation, where obviously they're not going to be quite as quick as qualifying.
So, if FP2 was the be-all, send-all representative session, Hamilton should have topped that.
We'll get on to Merck's race a bit later, because that was, yeah.
And so, obviously, Q1, Q2, Q3. Now, the biggest shock I took away from Q1, and I am coming on to this already, was Alpine.
What do you mean the fact that Alpine turned up with 2 Renault Clios rather than F1 cars?
Yeah, both of them getting knocked out in Q1 was quite a shock I did not expect.
I did love the line, I think it was from one of the commentators. Can you imagine Franz Tosti sat at home now going, "Ha, I told you."
Yeah.
I thought it was genius.
And on the subject of Alpine are having a structural change across they're having a restructure across their technical teams after 2 of their technical director and their head of aerodynamics basically resigned earlier today at time of recording.
Which is why we do the podcast a couple of days late. Because it gives them a chance to develop.
And it was like, yeah, Alpine. Yeah, okay. I mean, all I'm going to kind of say is Hulk is a bit fired up.
That's exactly what I was about to say. Literally exactly what I was about to say.
Yeah.
You know, Hulkenberg, what I don't know what he had for breakfast that morning.
Yeah, I know.
But Jesus Christ, he got that. He managed to hustle that ass around.
And he was the only one out of the houses that actually made it all the way through. Which, fair play. I mean, you know, I'm
kind of a surprising disappointment from Albon to only get 13th. His performance towards the back end of last season.
Yeah. I mean, you know, Sargent was where Sargent was, but I was kind of surprised at Sauber.
Yeah, but what you got our Sauber at this point not pushing hard on development when there's the big change coming next year.
Well,
you're not going to kick a shed ton of money. Is it now? It's 20. Is it next year? It's 26.
26.
So it's 2 years. So that well, 6 is in time with the new regulations, isn't it?
Yeah, 26.
But yeah, Sauber. We'll get onto their race as well.
Yeah. And we'll also get on to... now, I'm going to call them RB for the remainder of this podcast.
That's all that they're calling them, RB.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad we still call them Toro Rosso, but...
Obviously, when we're speaking about Red Bull, we'll call them Red Bull. If we're speaking about AlphaTauri, aka RB, we will refer to them as RB. I mean... Can they make it any more fucking confusing? But hey ho.
All they can do, don't worry. They certainly can do.
And obviously, I know Sauber are actually classed as Kick Sauber Ferrari, but we're just going to call them Sauber for the namesake.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not going down that avenue with the other person on the podcast reading names out. So yeah, you know which team we're on about most of the time.
Yeah.
If you know an F1 fan, you'll have a good idea.
I mean, quick skim through obviously qualifying. It's basically the fact that it seemed like Sainz didn't have pace and Leclerc did, but we'll obviously come on to the race side of things.
It's been said before about Leclerc though, and I think it's a few have said a lot reckon Leclerc is the fastest driver for one lap.
Yeah.
He's the best qualifier on the grid, full stop. I know the results we got to take car into account. They reckon he is the best qualifier. The trouble is that's not necessarily, if you're the best over 1 lap, you're the best over 60.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a
I mean, yeah, I mean, fair play to Perez. He come out the gate in qualifying.
Fernando into 6th, solid.
Yeah, Norris and Piastri are quite strong. Were quite strong starting off. Hamilton, yeah, he just, for some bizarre reason,
But
Russell managed to just wipe the absolute floor with him again.
how are we seeing the start of Mercedes' transition to Russell being more the... Apparently I never saw it, but apparently I was told by a relative in one interview. George said something like, they're finally taking the car the direction I want it.
Yeah, I didn't hear that either.
That's I'm quoting what was said to me, so citation needed. But if that's the case, I can honestly believe. I think we could see more because I think they are going to now start working more towards Russell.
Yeah.
Because obviously, unless Hamilton does decide to leave sooner, which let's be honest, after this weekend, I wouldn't blame him.
Yeah, he's buggering off to Ferrari next year.
Well, just because I was going to bring up a couple of points at the very end of the podcast, I've no doubt we've both got some stuff to say about that one.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we didn't do any interim podcasts because we weren't going to throw up random bits, and we neither saw enough of testing.
No.
Well,
so
a little bit of housekeeping at the end of this one.
So obviously, getting on to the starting grid, the fact that you had obviously 2 Alpines at the back, Sargent, Sauber, 2 Sauber drivers, K-Mag, Ricciardo, Albon, Stroll.
Apart from the Alpines, it's a very much similar to what we'd normally expect.
Yeah, Yuki.
I said to me, Albon's a bit lower than you'd expect, and Hulkenberg's a bit higher, so you'd maybe swap those 2 around normally.
Hamilton in 9th, Lando and Oscar. Well, Oscar then Lando, Fernando.
Fernando?
Yeah, I know. Perez.
Say that 3 times quick.
You had Perez up in 5th, Sainz in 4th, Russell 3rd, obviously Leclerc and Max, which Max did kind of well too. I was honestly expecting Leclerc on pole.
I told you, I just fully felt that Red Bull were just sandbagging. Red Bull were literally just didn't have the cars turned up because, what's the need?
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, getting into the race. How do I describe it?
Uneventful. Well, it wasn't completely uneventful. It wasn't one for the ages, let's put it that way.
I don't agree with the DRS after 1 lap.
Oh, I quite like that system. I think that's a reasonable. I like Brundle's idea that after safety cars it gets turned straight back on. Because it might just reduce the likes of Red Bull running away. Because they're not going to get the time to build.
Didn't work though, did it?
It needs further tweaking, perhaps, but you're not going to be able to have it straight off the line, obviously. But maybe I think it's actually a positive move. I really do.
I mean, this was the only. Now I expected a safety car. I expect
I think we had 1 yellow flag, didn't we?
That was when
Sargent sort of locked his brakes up and
had a hissy fit behind the wheel and then sat there.
Yeah.
Now, the one major thing I can't remember. Bottas got reprimanded, and I can't remember where he got reprimanded. Was that one of the practice sessions? Sorry to jump back there.
He's on caller.
I think Bottas got a reprimand for.
There's nothing on The results page.
Oh no, they cleared it. They didn't actually no further investigation.
I was gonna say there's nothing on the results pages. No, I mean, list it at the bottom if there's anything like that.
Yeah. I think it was one of the practice sessions. He'd gone over the line on the pit lane while the
Yeah.
light was still red, but he'd stopped. Anyways, he didn't carry on. So, but yeah, the race wasn't one of the best.
I mean, I like the Bahrain circuit. I always have done, but yeah, he'd had its moments. He had some interesting. Went to the race, we had I mean, I'm going to say now this season, I think we're going to see a very different Carlos to what we've seen in the last few seasons.
Yeah.
I think he's determined to walk out of Ferrari, giving him a bloody nose in the process.
Yeah.
I mean, those 2 overtakes on Leclerc, there was no team assistance going on there.
Nope, there wasn't. It was
He had to
bloody Monza
fight
all
his
over
way
again.
around. I mean, I thought they were going to touch on the second one, honestly. I was.
Yeah. And obviously, there was something that I found quite interesting. I mean, we're seeing a little bit of spice between Yuki and Ricciardo.
I think
Because
Yuki's seriously out to prove something. I think Yuki's realised he's one of the ones who really needs to.
Yeah.
Plus, let's be honest, we know there's a Mercedes drive going next year.
Yes, but yeah, I know. But this was the thing. Yuki was given a team order to let Danny pass, and it
resisted for a while.
Yeah, for too long, and that basically allowed K-Mag to scoot off.
Yeah.
Because he basically refused over the radio, and Danny's comment back, was it after the race, or there was a comment made from Danny about it, but it was...
No, I never saw that.
It was a bit kind of a punch comment at Yuki.
I think that we're going to have a few, especially this early on in the season, you're going to have a few drivers who are just going to want to basically prove themselves to be number one. So you're always going to get this little bit of.
Oh, yeah. I mean, already. And it's... Yeah, so during the... during one of, like, the interview... Danny had... Oh, I didn't see that. Sorry, guys. There's a clip on the F1 Facebook page that basically Danny had gone past Yuki after the race, and Yuki had literally tried to run Danny off the road.
Really, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
he literally tried to crash into him.
Wow, we're going to see a little bit of
spice
inter-team war there.
But like you say, does he have something? Is it Yuki having something to prove?
I think I think we've just got. Like I said, there can be a lot of drivers who think they've got a bit to prove this year. Because I think there's quite a few drivers who know there's could be some big seats coming up in the next year or so.
Because what was it? There was I mean, I'd heard rumors, obviously, of um, like Mercedes. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Mercedes trying to get Carlos, which honestly wouldn't be a
I'll be honest with you, of the options that are currently open to them, he's not a bad one.
no.
We've said it before, we've had this discussion. It's funny how we talked about this, and there's podcast evidence for about 3 years of us talking about this. And the Hamilton to Ferrari thing, and every time I've said the same thing. Where's Merck's next move?
Yeah. Well, there is. They have mentioned somebody, but I forget his name. I do forget his name, who it was.
Like I say, you wouldn't bring somebody from the junior straight into the main car.
No.
And you look through the customer cars, and I say your two options really.
Norris.
If you can buy him out of the McLaren contract,
Exactly.
take a punt on Piastri,
Yeah.
or do you go? Or Fernando is an absolute wild card. I would not suggest that for a million years, but
Well, there is that. Or you're gonna have
Perfect.
you're gonna have the likes of Perez, because if Perez does well this season, I can see his contract probably being
extended.
extended. But if he doesn't, then
The thing is, don't
Perez is a
forget.
possibility.
Don't forget, we're holding Perez as if like to Red Bull, because all Red Bull need him to do is play second fiddle.
Yeah,
They
we
got
know that.
1-2 last year. If he does that again this year, they're not expecting him to go out and challenge for wins. That's
Yeah,
not what they're after.
but Perez
They want a strong second.
wants.
Oh, Perez does. You know me, I'd love to see him do it.
Hmm.
But what the point I'm trying to make here is, if he does a carbon copy of last year, that's all Red Bull need him to do.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I think he had a great race.
Yeah, he did.
Fought his way through, strong second, was still a good gap behind Max at the end, but
Well, yeah.
secured the 1-2 from a closing sight, so which is,
Yeah, I know.
perfect job.
And Stroll didn't have too bad. The Aston Martins didn't have too bad of a race, but compared,
It's not salvage because Stroll at one point was well down the order. He seemed to drop backwards at the start.
yeah, but he had that.
Oh, yeah, he was caught up with Bottas, wasn't he?
No, he was caught with Hulkenberg.
But I think Bottas was involved in it somewhere around the line as well.
Well, Bottas had his own problems. Bottas was nearly fucking Monaco again, wasn't it?
That's the thing. He currently holds the unofficial record for the longest pit stop. I think he's now secured the second longest as well.
Yeah.
When the mechanic ran off with the wheel, it was like, what the bleeding?
It was just like, oh,
A
poor
comedy of
Bottas.
errors.
Yeah. And after the tussle between, like I said, the tussle between Hulkenberg and Stroll seemed to be able to fight back better than Hulkenberg did, considering where Hulkenberg started.
Is that the car? So we know the Aston's not a terrible car.
Well, we know it's not a terrible car, but something wasn't working for him this year.
It's very early days, yeah.
Yeah, but look at where Alonso was last year. Where was Alonso? Where Sainz was this year?
Yeah, of course.
That's the thing. He was on the podium last year. And this year, he was 9th. McLaren are starting strong, in my eyes.
They're building on where they were last year.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing, which is exactly what they need to do. I mean, I think they're going to be probably the strong candidate. They're not going to win this year because Red Bull are probably going to have this side, let's be honest. But I think they're in a good place for second. And it seems like both drivers are there, which is the good thing.
I read that earlier.
I heard it today on the news.
I read that earlier. And Ferrari have gone strong.
Ferrari gone strong, like I say. Sainz has a lot to prove. I think Leclerc feels he needs to do something. He needs to cement the team around him before Hamilton arrives.
Because otherwise he's going to get outshone.
Now, I will say this: I love the Ferrari livery this year.
Yeah, it's...
I know it's traditional red, but somehow that yellow and black just really seems to lift it, and the wheels. Yeah, I'll give it credit. It's probably my pick for livery of the year is that Ferrari.
And yeah, what's going on down at Mercedes?
That's yeah. I mean, let's be honest. It sounded like some of a comedy sketch. You know what? Hamilton complaining about his seat being broken.
Yeah, his seat broke.
Neither of them having any battery. I was expecting them to finish the race and the cars to fall apart like clown cars.
Well, the weird thing was, it seemed like his engine was overheating a bit.
I think I know we had number with, I think it was Albon at one point, and his car was saying too hot.
Well, yeah.
Now the funny thing was, temperatures out there weren't that hot for Bahrain. Yet they all seem to be having
overheating issues.
Now, is it that a few teams have been? We know that Red Bull have tried a certain amount of this Mercedes side pod design. Which that's got to be two fingers up to Mercedes, Annie. You know that design you abandoned? It's just one.
Yeah. And the weird thing is, though, was it Albon's steering wheel? He couldn't change anything because he couldn't see.
Yeah, well, Williams have made a big change this year where their screen is actually now on their steering wheel.
Yeah, but he
for a lot of years their screen. Every time we went to change it, the screen blanked.
I thought it was too bright, so he couldn't see it.
It was too bright, but when you looked at it, every time he changed the setting,
yeah,
I think the setting actually changed, but the screen went to 4 squares. It's like he was having a bit of a glitch. So he didn't actually know if he'd set it to the setting he actually wanted. He was trying to work from memory of knowing, well, that one's 3 clicks.
Yeah, because he was like, because I know that at one point they were during the race, he was battling with, could have been Yuki, and they wanted him to change something, and it was like, well, because I think he turned around and said, well, how can I when I'm in the middle of a battle?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you had no retirees, which kind of weird for Bahrain. Considering looking...
No retirees. Well, yeah, no retirees. You say had no safety car, 1 yellow flag.
Like I said, looking back at last year, you had McLaren, Leclerc, and Ocon. And then Norris was struggling last year because he had that issue with his car. And yeah, I don't know, it wasn't the best season opener.
No.
Not gonna lie. But is this a sign to come that is it going to be a Red Bull dominant year, or does
now don't forget we were having similar discussions at the start of last year and things changed.
I know, but I know what circuits this year will trip up Red Bull possibly, and that is going to be one. Is going to be Singapore. China could be another.
Yeah, we'll have to see on that. Well, like I say, we're too early. You can't draw conclusions at the end of one race.
No, I'm not drawing any conclusions. I'm just saying that could Red Bull get tripped up this year?
We have to hope so, for the sake of the entertainment. I want to see a little bit of competition.
But Ferrari are quite strong.
Ferrari are strong, McLaren are there. Merc aren't a million miles away if they can sort out the couple of little issues they'd be having.
Yeah. Aston Martin need to sort out because Aston Martin could be there.
Aston, Sauber, and the rest all seem to have ground to make, Alpine especially.
Alpine, definitely. I mean, obviously, I know this is going to be a little bit shorter, guys, but we're kind of keeping it short-ish. I want to look at the fan.
Let's look at the Fantasy League.
I don't think
We know.
I've done well this year already. I don't think I'm doing well.
It's rather early days.
So which league are you looking at? Do you want to look at first?
The GT UK guys, because they're both the same, because there's only the 3 of us in it.
At the moment, I'm hoping that other people
A few more join, yeah.
come into the other podcasts.
I might as well look at the one that's just me, you, and Alan for now.
Right. Well, shit. So, oh, you 3-time Piastri, that's why, you son of a...
It seemed a fairly good bet.
You haven't got any money left, like.
No, that's the thing. That's what I said they've changed this year. I'll be honest with you, I don't want Sargent, but he's all I can freaking afford.
But he got you 3 points where Albon didn't.
Yeah. So maybe I need to look at a reshuffle there a little bit. But yeah, obviously the 2 times on Max and the 3 times on Oscar seem like very safe bets.
Yeah.
And in a change to last year where I ran behind, I think, the entire year, I'm off to a good start.
You are.
I've actually no negatives there. I'll need a you to be fair.
No, I didn't have any negatives, but I didn't have...
Alan got a -1 for Yuki.
He did for Yuki because Yuki lost... Did Yuki lose in positions, was it?
It was
Yeah.
Albon 0 because he lost 2 positions but managed to overtake 2 cars. So
Yeah, I know.
he actually zeroed himself.
See, I kind of expected Alan to go Max.
I thought.
I did.
Now, it hurt me more not going for Perez, but I couldn't make it work in the budget.
No. And
I mean, say, as you can see by the cost cap, I literally went up to the buffers.
I know you did.
You and Alan at least both have a bit of... I wonder why Bottas doesn't have a picture.
Yeah, I don't understand why Bottas doesn't have a picture.
Obviously, the mullet was too much to photograph.
Probably. Now,
Just taking the picture of that car from Cars with the big grill on it, it looks about the same.
yeah. And it's like, my team isn't going to be this team. So this team that you see now, here, guys, has changed. I have made my changes for the next
I haven't
race.
yet. I'm thinking.
Alan, I'm not sure what Alan's going to do, whether Alan makes his changes or not. I reckon he might, but he might not. And obviously, David's kind of got a strongish team, but I don't know what he's going to do.
Yeah, it's a weird one. Because like I say, there's not a lot I can do there without losing. I mean, that's obviously not a bad lineup.
No, it's not.
And it's like, I can't. The only thing I would like Perez. I'm not going to lie, I would like Perez in the team, but I cannot make Perez work
No.
with the rest of the costs.
No. I mean, I will be keeping my eyes on the academy as well. Because obviously that is going to be kicking off at Saudi. So you have to excuse me while I get back into the Fantasy League again, because I've just messed it up. So I ended up joining that one with Connor in.
Oh,
s-
yeah.
the Scotty Races one. I'm not doing good in that at all. So in the other league, it's the same.
Yeah, because it's the same colour teams for now.
Well, it is the same teams because I've only allowed. Yeah, it's the same points. So basically, at the moment, David's winning them both. I am not letting him win this year
So you think?
because
I didn't
want...
win last year.
No, I won
You won
last
last
year.
year.
That's what I said. I'm not letting you win this year. I want to come back. And I plan on bouncing back.
A long way to go yet.
I know. So, obviously, I don't know what's said housekeeping.
Well, I just think there's a couple of points we should discuss. This is the first
Well,
podcast, and obviously the big one going to be the Hamilton to Ferrari. Your thoughts on that?
what about Gunther Steiner as well?
Yeah, the loss of Gunther. Although apparently he's back with his German TV.
He's back with German TV and he's also doing something for Australian TV when the race goes to Australia.
Funny when I was listening, I think it was the Jordan Coulthard thing, and they were talking about, was it might have been the FSF one, and they said something about this Hamilton, and they said, hang on, where do we get Gunther into this? Can he drive?
Mm.
We see him in a Merc next year.
I mean, it's a shame. I get it, Haas. The book stopped with him, basically. I get it. He was team principal.
But did it though? 'Cause it didn't feel like a performance sacking. It felt almost more like just a contract went to an end. You know what I mean? He didn't seem to have that.
Yeah, it wasn't the performance. It was the fact that his contract didn't get renewed, but it's the fact that, they weren't getting the results, and it just makes me wonder if Gene Haas had watched Drive to Survive, because Gunther within Drive to Survive had been saying, I'm done with it, basically. And whether that's something that Netflix did on purpose, but
Yeah.
I kind of don't blame Gunther for, even if he didn't want out, but even if he wanted out. Haas is, well, can't really say it's on its ass, but if Gene Haas is not willing to, put the money into that team, then...
The thing is, it's not just the money now. Money doesn't guarantee anything now. Toyota tried that. They threw all the money in the world at it and didn't get out good.
No, but from what I'd heard, he's not giving the money to be able to do. He's not really. It doesn't seem to be concentrating on F1 because he's got his hands in other pies, shall we say, over in America.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
So he's not, that seems to be on his back burner, which is unfair. If he wants that there, if he wants that team there, because otherwise F1 or Liberty might as well just boot Haas out, bring in Andretti.
Yeah.
Yes, Andretti is another American team, but they seem to be
There is some
asked.
talk that maybe they'd sort of run together.
But they seem to be asked about F1, where it just seems like, it seems like I'm calling out Gene Haas here, but it just seems like he's not asked. Watch that! Watch this. A letter will fucking arrive through my door because I've called him out.
Yeah, you're going to get a very nasty email off him.
But that's the way I feel Haas is at the moment. They got rid of Gunther. Yes, he was a personality. People liked Gunther. Yes, Haas weren't delivering results.
Yeah.
But it wasn't Gunther's fault at the end of the day for that. It was the fact that I'm not going to blame the drivers either. Not going to go
Yeah, I think-
down that route. It was the car.
Yeah, the car wasn't good. And the thing was it not last year, it was the season before, wasn't it? They actually had a bit of a run where things were starting to look not too bad.
Yeah.
And they seem to have gone backwards again.
Yeah. And obviously this season, okay, there was a little bit of an incident between, like I say, Nico and Stroll and whoever else.
Mm.
But the Haas in Hulkenberg's hands looks quite racy. It's just a shame that it didn't quite pan out. You know what I mean? Give it, if they get the upgrades, if they get the, if they do get the upgrades, they get that and they get sorted, Haas could be quite a competitive car.
Oh, yeah.
And, before we obviously finish, I want to know first your thoughts on what you were going to ask me, the Hamilton move to Ferrari.
I think my thoughts have been said on this podcast before, but I go by what I've said. I don't see what Ferrari are gaining from it other than maybe selling a few T-shirts and maybe a bit of share price. Hamilton's gaining the fact he's driving a red car. I think they're throwing away a stronger pairing in Leclerc and Sainz. This weekend's results sort of confirms that. And it doesn't strike me as a forward. It's the same logic that put Ricciardo in the RB rather than Lawson. Why put older guys in?
Because they probably.
And I realise I'm talking about guys who are the same age as me when I say older guys, but I'm talking in F1 terms here. I mean, what Ferrari going to get? 1, maybe 2 seasons with him, the most. Now, maybe they'll get a win. Maybe he'll get a win or 2. It's quite possible. It's probable. I think he will get at least 1 win. Will he get the championship? I doubt, unless 25 is a big difference. Although it was one really entertaining thing I heard online, which was maybe this is Ferrari's way of making sure Schumacher's record doesn't get broken.
Well, yeah. But it's not gonna, well, is it, Merc?
Yeah, but I don't think Ferrari are going to give him that much strength.
I think
Like I say, I can see him getting a win, maybe a couple, but I can't see him getting a championship.
I think he's in for a bit of a culture shock when he gets to Maranello, if I'm honest. He's never been to Maranello. But the problem is, Hamilton and Fred Vasseur have quite a history, because obviously
He drove for him in the junior program.
Exactly. They've known.
I also
known.
think there is another side of this, which I think is maybe part of Ferrari's thinking, because Hamilton leaves Merc. I wonder if they're hoping he might bring a person or two. If you've got 1 or 2 in the Merc program who were good, who liked Hamilton, I think there's a good chance Bono will go with him. So you think Bono's worked with Hamilton pretty much all his time in F1, hasn't he?
Well, yeah.
Now, if a strategist or 2 just happens to decide to go, because that's Ferrari's big problem, they lack strategists or competent ones.
Well, yeah.
And yeah, I'm saying it, if you're in Ferrari, hit me up in my inbox, I'll come and show you how it's done. Can't do much bloody worse than some of your attempts.
That's what I mean.
It's true. So I wonder if that's also, if they can then use Hamilton to poach a person or 2 out of Mercedes. What's your insights?
I mean, honestly, I can't, in my head, I can't understand why they've gone for Hamilton, because they've got a good pair. It's like, I'm repeating you here, they've got a good pairing within Leclerc and Sainz. If it had been me as a team principal, I would have gotten rid of Leclerc over Sainz. Sainz is.
I'd be inclined to agree with you.
Is the stronger driver.
I'd be inclined to agree with you fully.
like you say, Leclerc seems to be good at qualifying, not so great on race pace.
Well, not great's the wrong term. He's not. He's a good driver. He's not bad, but he's just, as you say, I think if you put him side by if we take this weekend as one small microcosm, who was the stronger of the two drivers this weekend?
Sainz.
The one who overtook the other one twice.
That wasn't, yeah. That's what I mean. You know,
He's the only person who won a race last year who wasn't driving a Red Bull.
yeah.
And he gets told he doesn't get his seat for next year.
Mm.
It seems a bit backwards.
You know, because sometimes what you see at Ferrari is most of the drivers have given up. You know, they get told that and they give up.
Yeah, but I think what Sainz he's not going because I think he knows because he wants his he wants to drive next year, so he now has to prove.
Well, this is what I mean. Most of the drivers that have been told, "Oh yeah, you're not getting a contract," sort of give up a little bit. Now, we see, like we said, we see the opposite with Sainz there. And I would say that, yeah, he's proving to Ferrari that you've probably made a big mistake.
Yeah.
And the only other, I mean, as weird as it is, the only other reason I can see them doing Hamilton is sponsorships. The money that he brings. That's all I can see.
They're going to sell a lot. They're going to sell a lot of merch from it. I can tell you that they're going to sell a lot of merch. They're going to make a lot of. So all that's probably worth it to them. But I just think it's a short-sighted move.
Yeah, I don't understand it because he's always blabbed on, "Oh, Mercedes is my family" and all this. I'll never walk away.
I think Connor's nailed it this year. I knew that freaking intro as he unzips and the Ferrari top's underneath.
Yeah. And I honestly feel that, maybe they'll sign him for a season or maybe two. And I think that'll be Hamilton.
Yeah.
I think he'll then retire.
Yeah, I would agree.
Because he has, he spouted some crap recently that only sort of half heard, I guess. That, he wants to sort of finish his career by driving a Ferrari sort of thing. And, like I say, 2 seasons maybe, and I think he'll retire.
Oh yeah, I would be inclined to agree. Might even right if 25 doesn't turn out to be amazing, I can see him going at the end of that one.
Yeah. And, it's at the end of the day, it's put Merck in a little bit of trouble. But Merck have options. They could go for Perez because Perez's contract runs out.
Yeah, but would you though? Unless Perez knew he wasn't going to get an extension at Red Bull, which, like I've said, he does do his back max up and he's got that.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I can't see him jumping to Merck unless he's not got any other choice.
You've got Perez, you've got Sainz. Who would replace Perez at Red Bull? Well, you've got Lando, you've possibly Albon. The best time for us to judge will be we'll know more is probably silly season. If it becomes a silly season at at summer break. Because we'll find out then, knowing doubt.
Yeah.
Of certain stuff happening then. Because it usually does.
Oh, yeah.
And I was expecting, honestly, I was expecting some big announcement during the summer break this year, and the big announcement happened before the season had even
Yeah.
kicked off.
I mean, between that, Horner getting investigated, it was a mad season. It hadn't even started yet.
Yeah,
I mean, we're going to skirt past that one 'cause I don't think there's anything to discuss there
there's
particularly.
nothing to do really to discuss.
It's
apart
been
from
sorted.
it's been dealt with, but apart from Ferrari and Toto coming out and saying there should be more transparency from Red Bull, something, it should be publicly known what the hell's gone on.
I might wonder if I found the timing of that very funny. Because you sort of started the season, somebody drops that one. I'm not saying it was set up by another team to try and sort of derail him a little bit, but
It seemed a bit much. I mean, the car
Yeah.
hadn't even launched.
oh yeah,
The car hadn't even tested at that point. There was a lot of destabilization within Red Bull. The media is still trying to poke
Yeah.
Horner for it.
pardon.
Seriously, they're trying to poke him for information over it. At the end of the day, whatever's happened. There's bullshit.
Yeah.
There's rumors around, there's rumor that Ford could possibly pull the pin as well over it.
Yeah,
Red Bull will be fucked come 2026. If Ford pull it,
I don't think they would. I think they'd manage that. I tell you what, I still strongly believe that Honda are doing a lot of the development now, even though it's Red Bull's engine. It is from the old. Now, I reckon if Ford weren't coming in, especially if the car still looks like it's on top, Honda aren't going to say, no, we're leaving you high and dry. Because they'll be earning good off this performance.
Oh, we know that. So, excuse me. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
I mean, do you want to talk about the game? Is that something? I mean, it's F1 related and it sort of ties the other side of the channel. I'm just thinking, as you know, yesterday we finally found the launch date for the game.
Did we?
I sent you all the links, didn't I? You remember? It was something like 23rd of the 5th.
Wow, that's early.
Hang on, I'm just double checking this.
I know you sent me the pre-order stuff. So there is obviously
28th of the 5th.
May.
The 28th of May. Day before my dad's birthday.
Okay. Monaco.
In
So
fact, that's the championship,
after-
which is 3 days earlier than the standard edition.
Yeah. So it would be technically
31st of the 5th if you take it for the standard edition. 28th for the champions.
yeah. So it's Monaco basically.
Yeah.
Monaco
Well-
weekend. So that's earlier. That's like only round 8.
I mean, it's the first year. They've got no new tracks to add. They've got no new drivers to add.
No new tracks. No new tracks. No new drivers.
Do you reckon they're going to pull something special out of the bag, or?
No. This year will be filler. Because it
This will
won't.
be the perfect year for what I've said. Just charge 15 quid and call it an update to 23 rather than.
Yes, but you've seen the prices.
Yeah.
Not impressed. Not impressed with that price.
It is. It's part of the course these days.
We know that.
I'm not saying I agree with it myself, but
What when it
Yeah.
even for me on a PS5 console, okay, it's sorry guys, I'm gonna have to get it up because if I quote these prices wrong,
No!
then
I've got it in front of me. It's $69.99 for standard edition.
is that PS4 price?
That's what I'm seeing on PS4, yeah. That's what I'm seeing on my PlayStation Store. Champions Edition should be £90, but they knock 15% off because I have 23 on PlayStation Store.
I'm seeing 15%.
Yeah, that's why I'm getting the same because I own F123.
Yeah, so it's £76.49 or £69.99.
You're seeing the exact same price as me.
There's not a lot between. There's not a lot between them. Honestly,
No, there
this is what you get. Okay, standard edition for £69.99. F124, PS5 or PS4. F1 World Starter Pack, 5,000 pit coins. Right?
We'll also say this is just PlayStation Store.
Yeah.
Other outlets might have other offers. Sometimes some stores get specials.
Yeah.
This is just what we see, both being on the Sony side of the fence.
F124, PS5, PS4 for the Champions Edition for 60. It's $89.99, or you've got your 15% for.
Hmm.
You know, you get the game on either console, early pre-order livery pack, 3 days early access and events, a VIP podium pass, 2 times new My Team icons. Never fucking used them in the last game. F1 World bumper pack and 18,000 pit coins. That's it. Between the price of like
I will say the early livery, what it is, you get 24 liveries that you can use in 23 in time trials.
all right.
You get McLaren and Alpine Esports liveries. You'll get more 24 liveries in this year's game after April, apparently.
Yeah.
So you get some little you get some extras for F123 as well with it.
Yeah. But yeah, that's. I mean, so if I go to game as well quickly, they are basically only at this point they are only doing the standard version.
I don't know, I haven't looked.
Yeah, $69.99 on game. So
I think when I looked at my go-to place for PlayStation credits and that, you know, the one I always use, they've got this weird like halfway edition. I think it's just a standard. It's just a standard edition. It does they're actually they're offering the standard edition at £62.
Yeah.
This is shop2.net. I might as well say the name. We're not sponsored. Unless you want to, Shop2, hit us up.
That would be good.
I've spent quite a bit of money with you guys over.
I've spent some money with you recently.
Yeah, because they're a good place for cheap PlayStation gift cards.
Yeah.
Basically.
But it's what it is. It's just there's not a lot there.
There was never going to be because there's not a lot they could do.
No.
Like I say, this would have been the perfect year, in my opinion, to not do a full game. He said, right, it's like a £15 upgrade.
Yeah. And, you know, it was... To be honest, it's just a bit pointless.
Yeah.
There's going to be just a lot of filler. F1 World's back, and I didn't hardly use it. Obviously, you're probably going to have the sports car, you know, you're probably going to have all like the sports car stuff back. You're not going to have any Breaking Point story. I don't know. To me, I'm just umming and ahhing whether to buy it, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'm still thinking, you know, I can't do that. I have to wait till I pay the end of this month anyway. Things are a little tighter this month, so.
Right, well, I think it's enough rambling, and we finish that one here.
Yeah.
So, obviously, next podcast, if you listen to this one, they're now going to come out on a Wednesday. So, they'll be out on a Wednesday. I don't know the time. It's probably going to be afternoon, about 3 p.m.-ish. Obviously, then, if there is any breaks in between, they're probably, like, during summer break, there might not be any podcast. We don't know yet. We'll decide that nearer the time. But, obviously, it'll be any week there's a race obviously, and if there's any week that there isn't a race, there's no podcast. We'll just follow the season again.
Yeah.
So obviously, thank you to everybody for listening. Thank you, David, for joining.
Pleasure as always.
Obviously, if you want to join the F1 Fantasy League, you can do the link for that to join that is on the top. And we'll see you for the next one. So until then.
Yeah, I was having a shit.
Goodbye.
Goodbye for now.